Well, hello again. Welcome to my kitchen. My name is Jeff Smith, the Frugal Gourmet, and today my kitchen is filled with smoke. And that's all right, because today I want to show you how to properly hickory barbecue. Now, the term barbecue is really a French word, though the French didn't do much of that. The term barbecue does not mean to simply lay something on coals or briquettes, which is what we usually do. But the term barbecue, barb means to skewer. Barb, you see, to stick a rod through an entire animal. A cue means completely. Barbecue means to skewer an entire animal and roast him, rotate him on a spit. They used to do that, a lot of that in Texas. I think they still do in some of the places in the South. But the thing that has marked American barbecue, and it really is an American thing, is to smoke the meat first. I learned from an old black fellow in Seattle, Washington, who ran, he's retired now, but he ran the most marvelous barbecue place. Absolute heaven. He had great, big, enormous brick ovens, and he smoked everything with alder, because that's common in our part of the country in the Northwest. Here I've used hickory smoke today, but I want to show you how to try and imitate what he was doing using a garbage can. Now remember, what we're trying to do today is to avoid direct heat. We're trying to cook in such a way that the meat is not undergoing direct heat, such as a normal pile of coals, you see. So let me show what I've done. This is a garbage can I've made for you, but don't back off. It works. It really does work. The can, look at it smoking. For heaven's sakes, please don't do this in your kitchen. I'm doing it in my kitchen today because I want you to see how it's done. But don't you do it in your kitchen. Do it out in the backyard. There it is. Isn't that marvelous? Now, inside, you see, I have placed a beef brisket here. I've boiled the beef brisket for about 2 hours first. The smoke is getting in my eyes. I can't even speak or think. Here it is. And I'll take this out. So I boiled it first for 2 hours, and I've smoked it for about 4 hours. Isn't it gorgeous? Let me put this away, and I'll show you how the smoker works. Because this is really a very clever device. First of all, you put a couple of rods down about 8 inches down in the kettle. You see? 8 inches down in the pan here. Poke holes in them, and the rods will act as holders for the plate that you've just seen, the tray. And then, to protect us from direct heat, I have placed here a pan of aluminum. Oh, it's just a cheap sheet of aluminum. It's a very cheap stuff that you can get in any hardware store. And some coat hanger wire. And I've arranged it in such a way that it angles. You notice how everything is dripping to one side? See how the drips go? See how the drips go. Sound like I'm talking to my children. They're characters. All right. Now then, down on the bottom, I should open this up and let you see what happens here. Down on the bottom, I have placed a hot plate. Now, it's not an expensive one. As a matter of fact, it's a very inexpensive one. But you see, I've arranged a doorway here, and the doorway is made, see, cheap piece of aluminum, and the doorway is made by bending back part of the metal, back this way, and then over around. You got that? You're making an S shape here. So you're coming back this way, and then bending it over, which gives us a pocket. You see a holder here on both sides. So I can put in the sheet of metal. That acts as a vent. Now inside, I have, cooking away, a pan of coals. And these are hickory chips that I've placed on top of, let's see. If someone will unplug this for me, I'll be happy. Oh, good, they already have. This was very hot a moment ago, as you can see. This is just an inexpensive hardware store item. Buy a porcelain one. Don't buy a plain cheapie. Buy a porcelain one because you're going to get a lot of use out of that. It'll last you much longer. Not a very big one. Doesn't get terribly hot. And you soak the hickory chips first in water. So if I add some now, you can hear the steam, you see. I'm keeping these soaked in a bucket. And every once in a while, when the pan burns down, I'll take the pan out, cover it with more hickory chips, and then reinsert it. And let's do that now so you can get a rehearsal here of the way you make this thing. Make the door. The pan goes inside. The pie plate goes on top with the wet hickory chips inside. Then we replace the door. I'll do that later. And let's put the whole thing back together. On top of that goes our plate to protect us from direct heat. And that's very important. You don't want the heat to get to the food, you see. In terms of the drying ability, you want the heat to just warm the food. There it is. So now we need to put our rack in. And the rack goes, whoops, I forgot the rods. That's not going to work. Put the rods in, metal rods, you see, which will hold your rack. This is great for smoked turkey. It's great for smoking your own fresh hams. You can just do anything you want with this gadget. It's just a terrific gimmick. I love it. And to be sure that you have good control, here, let me put it back in now. And to be sure that you have good control, I have a thermometer here that I've plugged in the back. You see this back hole? And it goes right underneath the meat so that I can check the temperature. You want the temperature to always be somewhere around 140 degrees. If it gets above that, maybe up to 160 perhaps, and not below 120. And you can control that easily by watching your thermometer. When it begins to go above 150 or 140, you know that it's time to put more wet chips of hickory on the fire, or alder if you live other places of the country. Let's put this back together. You remember now the lid goes on top. You notice in the top, I did the same thing. I made another vent. See? So I can control through the bottom or the top, I can control the amount of draft that goes through the smoker and thus the heat. So there it is. Let's cook now. I want to take this brisket out. It's simply a delicious dish. Remember, I boiled the thing for 2 hours, a regular beef brisket, and then I smoked it. Oh, hold it, it's so tender I can't even pick it up. Here we go. There we are. It is so tender that it's just gorgeous. And this has been smoked for about 4 hours at about 125, 140 degrees so that it'll be easy to serve and easy to enjoy. Let me slice that up for you right now, and we'll see what it looks like, huh? This may sound strange to you to barbecue a brisket, but in Dallas, this is considered it. This is barbecue. Beautiful brisket. There. Oh, this is so rich. See, cook it with the fat side up. There. Look at it. Look at how juicy and lovely this is. But you know, it's nothing. You're wondering where the barbecue sauce is, aren't you? Well, just calm down. I'll tell you in a second. There are two schools of thought about barbecue. One school is you put the sauce on the meat when you're cooking it. The other school is the people who put the sauce on the meat when they're cooking it are crazy. Those are the two schools. And I have learned from my friend in Seattle that that the sauce really, he's convinced the sauce should go on later. So let me show you, I'll put the meat out here. Let me show you how to make a sauce that I think is heavenly for a good barbecue. Oh, you want to see what else I have in the oven? If you roast chickens, simply steam them. If you want to make a good barbecue chicken, steam them smoke them first in our little garbage can and let the neighbors see. For heaven's sake, set the thing out in the yard in such a place so that you can arrogantly stand there and play with your garbage can and adjust the vents on your garbage can, turn the thermostat, you see, hook up the electric wire to your garbage can, drive them crazy. They won't know what you're doing. It'll work well. Smoke chickens for about 4 hours, cold chickens, whole chickens, and then you have to roast them in the oven, of course, because they haven't been cooked. Remember, I cooked the brisket ahead of time, but I hadn't cooked the chickens. The chickens were raw. I smoked them, then I roasted them for about an hour in the oven. I also did the same thing with spare ribs. Put them in raw for about 4 hours at low temperature, and they're baking now. So let's check some of these out, and we'll put them on a platter and see what we have here. I think we're going to have great fun today because barbecue, legitimate barbecue, where are all my pot holders? Excuse me, here they are. Legitimate barbecue is really a dish that belongs to America, and you and I should have a good time celebrating it. So let me get a chicken out here. Oh, Lord, have mercy on all of us. This is a great dish. Let me see how I can pick this rascal up here. Drain some of the fat. Look at all the fat in this rascal. There. One barbecued chicken. I'll leave the other one here in the oven to stay warm. I made a couple because I always have friends coming over. Isn't it interesting that you would never consider doing barbecue for yourself? I mean, this is not a frozen TV dinner routine. When you go to the work of making barbecue, the minute that you begin to plan the meal, you begin thinking about who you're going to invite. It's like buying a fine bottle of French wine. When you buy the wine, you know that it's a communal event. From the year that you buy the wine to the year you finally drink it, you see. You keep thinking about who it is you're going to drink it with. And that's what the table means. The idea of eating alone really bothers me. I don't like to do it. So barbecue is a thing that forces you to invite people in and have a good time. And that's the point of eating. Good Lord, we can pop food if you want, but I don't think we should bother. I think we should celebrate one another, and a barbecue is a great way to do it. So one whole bird, and we still don't have any sauce for him. And I have another tray up here of beautiful ribs. Oh, they're just heavenly. They're just heavenly. And these ribs I smoked again for about 4 hours. And they're very, very tender. I baked them in the oven at about 325 to 350 for a while, till they're toasty and done, you see. You want the crunchy edge on this. That makes it great. The other dish I'm not going to tell you about yet because that's a later surprise, so I'll just leave it sit here. And we're going to talk now about some sauces, because my friend in Seattle claims that the sauce should be added later. So let me give you his recipe. I've changed it a tiny bit because he makes it in something like 8,000 gallon vats. That's an exaggeration. He makes it about 10 gallons at a time. That's a little much for me, so I've cut it down, and I had to change it. You know, when you cut recipes down, things change, but I have a very good one for you, and I think you'll enjoy it. So let's begin on a first-class Southern barbecue sauce. I think you'll love it. First of all, we need a saucepan, because we're going to cook this for a couple of hours, simmer it for a couple of hours. And to the saucepan, we're going to add the following goodies. I want an ounce of salt. Now, either measure that out. This is going to make quite a bit, so don't worry about the salt. I want about an ounce of salt or a good teaspoon, a good fat teaspoon of salt. Then I want a half a cup of sugar, and I'm using white sugar. Half a cup of white sugar. And to that, I'm going to add 1/4 of a cup of brown sugar. Is this a candy show or is this a barbecue? It's a barbecue. Calm down. We've got lots to do yet. And to that, we will then add 3 cups of our good beef stock. You remember several weeks ago, we made beef stock. Excuse me, I'm kind of banging and clanging. Several weeks ago, we made beef stock. And if you don't have fresh beef stock, you can certainly substitute a bouillon of some sort. But remember to cut down on the salt when you do that. What did I say? 3 cups I wanted. There's 3 cups. I wanted you to cut down on the salt content, because the bouillon, you see, is primarily salt. Read the package. You'll be amazed at the salt content in what we call prepared foods in our culture. And we're eating too much salt, so cut down on it, will you? I tell you that every week. I want you to get so tired of hearing that from me that when you begin to cook, you'll remember. All right? That's the gimmick. Now then, I need a half a cup of mustard, and I'm going to have to just guess at that. Let's see, where's a spoon in here? Here we go. A half a cup, and this is, when I say mustard, in this case, it's prepared mustard. There's a half a cup of prepared mustard. You know, the yellow stuff that's loaded with turmeric that you buy in the supermarket. That'll do the job. That's what he uses. Then he wants 1/4 of a cup of white vinegar, not wine vinegar, just plain old vinegar, white vinegar. 1/4 of a cup. And then to that, we're going to add some liquid smoke. Now, this stuff comes in funny little bottles. There are several different brands in the market that are very good. It's a distillate from wood, and it really smells awfully good. You want 1/4 of a cup. Okay, 1/4 of a cup. There it is. And now we're going to add a half of a cup of Worcestershire. A half of a cup of Worcestershire, that's Southern cooking. New Orleans, they use this stuff by the bucket. You buy it by the gallon. There it is. Half of a cup of Worcestershire. And to that, we're going to add 1 cup of tomato paste. I keep losing my spoons here. I don't think I'm going to have enough to go on. Half of a cup of tomato paste. This is a 12-ounce can, so I can guess very easily how much that would be. You see, a can is... what's 12 ounces? It's 1.5 cups. That's what it is. All right. There we have it. And now we need to add a bit of red pepper. And I'm going to use red pepper flakes. And this is where you decide whether or not you're making hot barbecue or whether or not you're making plain barbecue. And in addition, I'm going to throw in some chili powder. Oh, about a tablespoon. I'm going to simmer all of this after stirring it very carefully. Whoops. Please don't stir in your pans with a metal spoon. You can measure with a metal spoon, but don't stir with a metal spoon because it'll ruin your pans. Every time you make a scrape in your pan, you've ruined what you're going to cook the next time. You know what I mean? Every time you scrape in your pan, you're going to have a scratch and it will claw and stick to food. Now then, simmer this for 2 hours. Very gently, and you'll wind up with just under a quart of the most marvelous... Well, I've already made some for you. Why should I tell you? Let me show it to you. It's just heavenly stuff. Heavenly stuff. Here's my spoon. Don't leave wooden spoons in the pot either, because they'll pick up a flavor, and you don't want that. But here's my sauce that I made just before you came. And this would be served over the brisket as you serve, you see, or over the ribs. Oh, this is it. This is it. Goober it right on there. But not when it's cooking. And finally, we're going to try some. We can put some over the chicken. I'll just add a little to him right now, but we'd normally tear him up, you see. Now, why do you add the sauce later? Well, my friend's theory is that since the sauce is loaded with sugar, and then you're cooking with sugar on your food, what you're going to wind up with is a lot of burned sugar. And you don't want burned sugar. You want barbecue. You want to cook the meat rather than burning the sugar. So he cooks his meat first, and then he puts the sauce on later. The sauce, of course, is served hot, and it works beautifully. So there you have another barbecue sauce. Let me show you one more dish I have in the oven. I have 3 now, and I have another one coming out, because there's another culture that is very wise with barbecue, and of course they're the Chinese, and they just invented every good cooking technique you can imagine. Really, they're the first ones to do anything in food. And here we have it. Whoops. Here we have it. I had water in the bottom of this pan so that when the, you see I have a broiling pan here, so that when the fat drips to the bottom, it will not burn up and smoke up the oven. I want it to cook nicely without making a great deal of smoke. That's what you see here. That's the water that's splashing about here. Okay, barbecued Chinese spare ribs. Now, let me give you the recipe for this one. The sauce is so easy to make, and you really should enjoy it, because you can do this one in your oven. You don't have to put them in your big Chinese or in your big smoker oven, though you can do that way, both ways too. But let me give you the sauce first. Now then, we'll grab a pan. We're going to cook this for just a little bit. So let's take a pan, and here we go. We want 2 cloves of garlic, and we're going to smash them up properly here into your saucepan for a marinade barbecue sauce in China. And this is going to be cooked on the meat. That's how the Chinese do it. It's very different than Texas or Southern barbecue. 2 cloves of garlic. Oh, I just love garlic. I cannot imagine what the world would be if it weren't for garlic. There. All right, 2 cloves of garlic. And we're going to add to that 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. 1, 2, 3. There we go. And about 2 tablespoons of light sherry, dry sherry, very dry sherry. You don't want to use sugar in your cooking because you can't control it. So buy a very cheap sherry that you can drink. Remember the house rule? You've heard me say it before. If you can't drink it, don't cook with it. Don't buy stuff that has salt in it. And then we need some fresh grated ginger. This is called a finger of ginger because a big piece of ginger is called a hand. You see, it's just a little chunk. And buy it fresh in the supermarkets. I hope you can find it in your community. I don't know where you're at, but I have no trouble finding it in mine. If you're near a large Chinese community or Japanese community, you'll have no trouble with this. This little porcelain gadget is a ginger grater. Isn't that cute? It looks like a little tiny shrunken washboard, doesn't it, huh? Remember the old washboard? You don't, eh? Well, never mind then. Your grandmother remembers. Put in about a teaspoon of freshly grated ginger, and then we're going to add a couple of tablespoons, about a half a tablespoon of brown sugar. I just want to barely sweeten that with a little bit of brown sugar, and about a half tablespoon of sesame oil. Now, please buy toasted sesame. Don't buy raw sesame oil because it just won't have the right flavor. There it is. And then we're going to add some 5-spice. Again, you can find this in a supermarket. I want about a half teaspoon of 5-spice. And if you can't find this in the supermarket, then mix your own of cinnamon and grated ginger. It's a very different flavor if the ginger's been dried. Okay. 5-spice. It has all kinds of marvelous things in it from China. And some hoisin. This is a barbecue sauce that you'll find on the shelves in your supermarket under the Chinese section. It's a bean paste. I want to put in a good fat tablespoon of Chinese barbecue sauce, literally, which is a hoisin. H-O-I-S-I-N. Hoisin. Hoisin. Goes downhill when you speak Chinese. Da-da, da-da, hoisin, hoisin. It's never called hoisin sauce, but hoisin. There you are. Good lesson. Free today. And then we have a shot of Tabasco, which is an absolute necessity, terribly American, but it helps because the Chinese use a marvelous garlic and pepper sauce themselves. That's just very good, and that's as close as we can come to it. And a bit of, about a tablespoon of tomato sauce, or perhaps tomato paste. I'm using tomato paste, and we'll go from there. Now then, we'll mix all of this up, and cook it for about 5 or 10 minutes. And be careful because this will be a gloopy sauce. You know what a gloopy means? Ploopy, gloopy. It gets on your shirt. That's what it means. When this stuff begins to bubble, it'll plop up on your shirt, so be careful, will you? Cook it for about 5 minutes. Brush it on the ribs and marinate them for approximately 45 minutes to an hour, and then bake them at about 350 until the ribs are tender and nice. Shouldn't take more than about 45 minutes to an hour. So let's try those and see what we have today here. This is, for me, this is great fun. I love barbecue. Incidentally, you want to make a quick look. You know, you're thinking, my God, he uses so much salt when he cooks. No, I don't. I'm cutting down on salt. We've talked about that in terms of heart surgery and all that sort of thing. Well, let me give you a low-salt, low-fat barbecue sauce that you can use on your meat after you've cooked it in a smoker. Now remember, the first point we made today is that the smoker itself is not the cooker. If you want to use it as a cooker, then you put charcoal in the bottom. You put charcoal in the bottom and heat the thing up. After you take your little oven out, take your little, what do you call it, the heating element out, you see. Then you heap hot charcoal off to one side. And this metal plate, which is in here on the angle, will prevent the meat from being burned by the searing heat of the charcoal. We don't want to do that. We want to protect the meat We want to protect it always. So the plate, you see, has a marvelous Chinese influence in this cooker because the Chinese build ovens that are shaped this way. The heat is in the sides, and then it barrels up into a kind of a bell-shaped affair, and then the meat is hung inside the bell, and it's never seared or burned. It's cooked very tenderly and very carefully. That's a basic difference between what we call barbecue and what the Chinese call the Chinese oven. The heat is in the outskirts of the oven, and it comes inside. In ours, the heat's directly under the meat, or directly on top if we broil, you see. And we're searing the meat. We burn it too much. Let me give you one more recipe for a low-salt, low-fat cooking sauce that you can add to your barbecue sauce. You can add to your meat after you're done. Here it is. This one I whipped up for you because I need to think about my place as a heart patient at this point in my life. A 12-ounce can of tomato paste. Why am I using tomato paste? Because it doesn't have any salt in it. Read the labels. That's the only product in the market, only tomato product in the market that doesn't have a great deal of salt in it. It has none. But read, some of them do have salt, but most of them are very, very low. Then I want a half a cup of white wine. We're going to thin this down with half a cup of white wine. There we go. And to that, we're going to add a tablespoon of dry mustard. Come on out of there, you. I'm using Coleman's. This is an English mustard that is just terrific. Tablespoon of dry mustard. And then we want to add 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. Boop! 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. And to that, we're going to add a tablespoon of Worcestershire. Look at all these bottles. Good Lord, I feel like a cheap pharmacist. Tablespoon of, I wasn't insulting the pharmacist. I'm simply saying that I've got too many bottles here to handle. A tablespoon of Worcestershire, a dash of Tabasco. Alrighty. A bit of brown sugar. Let's try about 1/4 of a cup. I want to sweeten this up, you see. Otherwise it's going to be a little bitter. And some chili powder. I like a tablespoon of chili powder. Choose the right one, Smith. Here it is. Tablespoon of chili powder. Oh, this is great stuff. And a couple of tablespoons of minced onion. Isn't that clever? I just have minced onion lying around my kitchen all the time. Well, you remember my theory is that you should cook 1 day a week very seriously, so that you have all these things sitting around. You don't have to clean up so many things. Cook seriously 1 day a week, and you'll have a great time. Now we need to add the juice of half a lemon to this, and please remember that it is the lemon juice that's going to protect us from the need for salt, because lemon and white wine, are just great for you, and they have no salt in them at all. But the acid in the lemon and the acids in the wine will help you get rid of your need for salt, your hunger for salt. That's the word I should use, because we're all addicted to it, you see. This will work great. All right. And finally, I'm going to add a little bit of Wright's liquid smoke, or any brand that you'd like. This particular one is very good. And I'm going to add a couple of teaspoons of Wright's liquid smoke, and then I'm going to simmer this for a little bit, maybe 10, 15 minutes on the stove, and we'll have a marvelous barbecue sauce that has no fat and no salt, and it'll be heaven on the meat. Now let's get back to the food, huh? This is going to work. All right, let me clear a spot. You see, I'm running out of space today, so I'm using stovetop covers. Have you seen these things? They go right in the top of your burners. This particular batch is made by a fellow by the name of Max Burton in Tacoma, Washington, of all places, and he ships them all over the country. And I love them because they give you some extra space, and besides, your burners don't look filthy. And if you hate to clean burners as much as I do, well, let's face it, I've never cleaned a burner. I don't do burners or windows. I just let them go. Nobody's seen the outside of our house for years. No, that's not true. I have a nice house and nice windows. The brisket we don't have to worry about. It's the chicken I want to cut up. I want to try one of these. I can't decide which one to go on to here. It's just so good. Let's try the brisket, huh? Get a fork and a knife and get started. Let me try the brisket. It's been a while. When I was in Dallas a few weeks ago, I had brisket. I won't talk about the restaurant, but it was supposed to be a very good place, and I tried their brisket, and I didn't think it was so hot. I think mine's better. Smoked in the backyard in a garbage can. Can you imagine? Oh, my Lord. If you weren't paying attention today, I'm really sorry, because you missed out on a tirade. I have prepared for you 4 dishes. 3 of them I prepared in my yes, you heard me, in my garbage can. Can't you imagine if your mother-in-law comes in when you're watching this show? What are you watching? Oh, this guy in his garbage can? That's all right. Tell your mother-in-law to sit down, give her a glass of sherry, and calm her down. We've prepared pork ribs that we first smoked in our garbage can smoker. They look a little dark to you, but they're really not that dark at all. They're crunchy and lovely. We prepared a chicken. Look at how moist he is inside. Look at this. Look at this. You see how gorgeous he is? Because we smoked him first, and that meant that the skin was sealed up tight. And then when we took him out of the smoker, we put him in the oven for about an hour or so and roasted him, but the skin was sealed so that he didn't lose his moisture. He's heavenly. We did a brisket. First we boiled the brisket for an hour, for 2 hours, excuse me. You can do it for a little longer than that if you like. And then we smoked him for 4 hours, put him on a platter, carved him up, and put that gorgeous sauce on. And finally, fourthly, we prepared a beautiful sauce for Chinese spare ribs. And these ribs are cooked with the sauce on. Everything else, the sauce is off. But on these ribs, you bake them with the sauce on at about 375 for, 45 minutes to an hour. And you'll have a lovely dish that'll bring great times to your family. And finally, we made a barbecue sauce that's low salt, low fat. The point of our binge today is simple. Barbecue is a social event. Bring friends together and celebrate the fact that we really do need one another, and we really should stick together in this. We have no other place to go. So for heaven's sakes, bring them to the table. This is the Frugal Gourmet. I'm glad you came today. Until we meet again, I bid you peace. Bye-bye.